Hi, this is Government Affairs Committee. It's 10 after 6 and we're going to call the meeting to order. And I'm the chair, Rita Villa. I'm present. The meeting's been being recorded on a recording device, not a video. It's a recorded minutes. The secretary of our meeting, Anne Marie Whitman, has an excused absence. She's traveling, and Barry Johnson also has an excused absence because he got stuck on a shoot with his camera's crew of CBS. So that's where he is. So then I will call the roll. Marcia Newman. Here. Lisa Karagian. Here. Lisa Sarkin. Here. Denise Welving is ex officio. She's not present. Okay, so the first item is item 2, approval of the May 3rd, 2017 GAC minutes. Because Anne Marie's here, is out of town, I don't think the minutes went out. She had sent them to me, and she might have meant for me to send them, which I didn't do. But you guys didn't get them from her, did you?
I did not get them.
Okay, so we're going to table that and approve those at the next board, at the next GAC meeting, okay? Update by the committee chair. All right, tonight's meeting, and I appreciate everybody coming at this strange meeting date and time, but we're having this meeting tonight because we need to respond to the cannabis. So the working group has finished all its work, and Council President Wesson's RAIN committee has been leading the charge on this, working through his main deputy on this has been Andrew Westall, and he has been absolutely stellar in his diligence and approach and getting stakeholder input and bringing everybody together and studying it and explaining it. He's held a lot of meetings, and I've attended most of those meetings being part of the working group. And then the RAIN committee has held a number of meetings throughout the city as well on this, giving stakeholders opportunities to input. So on June 8th, finally the draft commercial cannabis activity requirements have come out, and Council President Wesson, Koretz, Blumenthal, and Nuri Martinez, those 3 council members, all issued this letter. They're all members of the RAIN committee, and they issued the.
What's the whole entire
title? They issued the proposed requirements for commercial cannabis activity in the city of Los Angeles. So that's what they issued. In conjunction, so this is the document that the working group has been working on, and that Westall has been working on with all of the departments in the city, and the city attorney, and everybody. He's been working with everybody to get this together so that they can respond to the legislation, and they've done a stellar job. I mean, I've been there, I've seen it, it's been amazing. And the people that have showed up, the stakeholders that have shown up for this, you would think, like marijuana people might be. No, these people are so respectful. It's more respectful than a council meeting. The people that go there and their professional approach to
the future of the business.
To it. I mean, yes, they are the business, and they're business people, and that's what they're. And I'm really impressed with all the people that have been on the working group, and I'm grateful to have gotten the opportunity to serve on that. So that's a little bit of background with that. So then, in addition to that, 2 things have been released. The City Planning Department's Code Studies Division has issued this, which I sent you all this information, which is the Commercial Cannabis Location Restriction Ordinance, right? So this is an ordinance. The others are rules and regulations, and that'll become an ordinance. But this is by the Planning Commission. So the Planning Commission issued this, and so there is a draft ordinance, and it addresses a number of things, and we'll go through that a bit tonight, and including maps of where things can be, etc. Because this all relates to location restrictions, right?
So I have
basically,
a question. Excuse me. Has that been voted on, or
no?
It
No.
hasn't been adopted?
No.
We're studying.
This is just released.
Okay.
So there's now, and what Wesson asked, our Council President Wesson asked in this document in his letter, which I'm going to forward everybody tonight because we're going to address this at the next meeting.
Okay.
So this document, he's asking in the next 2 months for all the neighborhood councils to weigh in on.
And 2 months,
document,
you see, it's a big doc, so this
so
one
he's
isn't
giving
as
us
big.
Too much.
Okay.
2 months. Then, excuse me, in the meantime, like I said, the planning department issued the sensitive use or proposed ordinance. And
what does that mean, sensitive use?
Okay, so basically if you have a like a school, you don't want the school to be within 500 feet or 800 feet or whatever it is. You don't want the school to be too close to a cannabis business. you want some distance, especially dispensaries, both recreational or medical. And that's currently under Prop D that existed. So that is basically what this ordinance is dealing with.
We want that, something that tells them they can't have it just anywhere.
The Planning Commission issued, or the Plum Committee asked for a land use review option. And so there was a supplemental ordinance prepared called the land use review option. I sent you all that too, which, says, well, the zoning code administrator should look at this, that, the other. Well, in a nutshell, this is not what we want. We want what the working group has come forward with, which means that the Cannabis Commission should consider the land use locations and sensitive uses. The commission should do that in the application process when they are accepting someone to give them a certificate, all right, for having a business. And we'll go through that a little bit more in a minute.
While you're getting your ability to be able to operate one of these places, they're also going to be telling you where you can operate it.
Right.
Okay.
And we'll go through, yes.
And what this option
So
is.
they're treating it like a liquor license.
Yes, in
It
a
should
way.
be.
In a way. Okay,
Yeah.
and then on top of all that, this motion was issued, basically, and I sent you this motion
Yes.
as well. This is the motion related to the social equity, right? And this is a very important, so this is an enabling motion, the social equity motion that they put. And what it's basically doing is enabling what they're talking about in here, because that is a fundamental part of the regulations that we'll deal with next time. So, in a nutshell, there's my committee update. And now I want to go into our agenda items and give. So I'm sorry, I'm skipping around.
So this hearing is only on the one thing that we're doing the motion, not that.
Correct.
And not those other last two things you talked about.
Right.
Okay.
Right. No, the supplemental motion,
Yeah.
the supplemental ordinance is
Yeah.
also part of this hearing thing. This hearing
This
the
hearing
land
thing
use.
is supplemental
Right.
too? Okay.
Right. That's that. Those two pieces are in this. What's not in this is this one, and the item we have the social equity. Social equity. Is
Okay.
separate.
The social equity. Okay.
So those are the two things that are separate.
So we're doing the cannabis,
Okay.
that thing.
So we have today two guests here that are not committee members. We only have two guests. I'm saying that for the benefit of the recording. We have Richard Niederberg, who is a member of our land use committee as well as a board member. Thank you for coming tonight, Richard. I appreciate it. And we have a stakeholder, Judy Price, who is here with us today as well. So for the purpose of the record, that's all the people that are in the room, and that's who showed up tonight. So.
And everybody has a copy of the whole thing that was on the thumb drive.
Okay.
Every
thank you.
page.
All right. So, all right. So now we'll go into. I want to know if there is any public comment. Judy, did you have any public comment that you wanted to make that's not related to the agenda items? Obviously.
No.
Okay. Richard, do you have any public comment? Okay. So there being no public comment, there will be item 5 is responses to public comment by committee members. So that's not applicable, and we will go straight to item 6, which is presentation, discussion, and possible motion with respect to the creation of the social equity program. So I sent you all the motion relating to the social equity program, and this is a starting point. So if you read the motion, what they're saying here is that they are, and this, so like I said, social equity program is implicit, and all of the provisions of it, not all the provisions of it, but the theory for it and why is in part of the regulations. So the regulations have been developed with a view towards having a social equity program.
So it's referred to in there.
So it's referred to in there. But what the so what needs to happen is that they are asking that they're saying that the city of Los Angeles needs to begin to work on how to create the social equity program. Like, what should be the parameters for someone to qualify to participate in the social equity program. And that is what this motion is doing. So this motion is just instructing the chief legislative analyst and the city administrator officer and the planning department and everybody else to that they're directed to solicit a social equity analysis of the cannabis regulations, which are aimed at promoting equitable ownership and employment opportunities in the cannabis industry in order to decrease disparities in life outcomes for marginalized communities and to address the disproportionate impacts of the war on drugs on those communities. Because some communities have been
inundated with, like we were with 19 in our little space.
Inundated with cannabis operations, legal and illegal. Some were property compliant, but the majority weren't, right? And also, some communities have been disproportionately, the police and whatnot, there's been a lot of criminalization more in some communities than others. Like in Studio City, you go into the pot shop, nobody has been arrested, right? None of the pot shops here have been raided. None of that happens here. There are other areas of the city where, they're constantly getting raided. They're constantly having their people, even people that are there with medical marijuana certificates are being subjected to, enforcement actions, etc., being taken against them. So what the purpose of the social equity program is to try to let people that have been disadvantaged have some ownership opportunities in the long run. So that's what this motion is. So the city.
Okay, so one of those meetings, I have to admit, I really didn't understand that. But so what that is helping the people who aren't in the more advantaged neighborhoods to be able to get into the business, not just not use it, but to be in the business.
It's enabling them. So what they're going to do is have aspects to the program that help them with financing, help them with learning
just like
how
what we
to
talked
run a
about.
business.
Okay.
Any of those programs for the disadvantaged. Employment opportunities.
To own and operate.
Owning and operating.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so who brought this on?
The city, and all across the city, there was a big movement to be sure that those that are disadvantaged get the opportunity to participate in ownership of the business.
So is that a nicer way of saying not being discriminated against?
Yes, because you can't.
But you can't say
do it
that
based on race or
Yeah.
But why do they have to? Why can't they just say all applicable non-discrimination laws apply to cannabis?
Because at the meetings we were at, the people that were of the persuasion that they felt that they would be left out wanted to make sure it was all inclusive.
Well, I have to be honest with you. I'm a business person. If someone wants to open up a cannabis, whether medical or recreational, they got to figure out how anyone else has to operate a business, keep it going, have profits, reinvest in your business, and pay your taxes. The biggest issue that the whole cannabis industry has to deal with is that they can't get credit.
Right.
And they can't have a bank account.
Permit. You have to have the license.
Right.
I actually have a solution.
It's not like a regular
so
business.
So part of this
solution, but it's
part of this process is. One of the things that there will be probably a fee, an application fee alone of about $7,500, just to apply to get the certificate. Then you could be denied your certificate, but just you don't get that money
but you're
back.
out of the
you're just SOL, right? For that money's just gone. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to find ways and find. Like Small Business Administration helps small businesses, that kind of thing. And that's the point, that they're going to try to put together something so that
when they were discussing it made perfect sense.
Yeah.
It really did. But
that's not, so that we're not going to have, but my point is that although it reads, discussion, presentation, possible motion here related to a motion from us tonight, my only point for this was to update you that this exists and it's part of this.
Okay, it's incorporated.
So it's incorporated in that.
So that's why
and that we need to wait to weigh in on this until we see what provisions they come up with, because maybe they're going to come up with provisions that we don't like. So this is just an update.
Okay,
all right. That's why you didn't say you were going to make it a CIS.
That's why there's no
obviously
motion or whatever.
We have opinions about that.
Right. So I just and we'll have stronger opinions when we have facts. Right now we don't have enough facts, but I just want y'all to be aware.
It's just a thought, it's an idea, it's being incorporated, it's in there.
Right. So that's what's coming.
And even when we look at this, it doesn't have all of the facts that we need either.
Right.
But it does have this concept incorporated in the regulations.
So it's a work in progress.
So that's, I just wanted everybody to get up to date that this is on the horizon. It'll be part of that, and more information will come. And when we get that information, then everybody will address that.
Okay, so that's why you didn't put CIS on this
So
or
it
anything
just
like that.
doesn't say
Okay.
anything because I'm not
Okay.
expecting that.
And that's
to
why
be-
we don't have any one of these for this.
Are they
Okay.
going to treat these like medicinal bakeries or something? Because they're selling foods.
Yeah, there will
Okay.
be some of that. I mean, then that's
But that's part of the county.
and
That
that's also part of the regulations that are being developed. And there are regulations. I should have said this too in my intro. There are regulations being developed at the state level, and so those regulations, some of them will automatically apply in the city. So the city won't reinvent the wheel on those regulations. And specifically what you're asking about, Marcia, with the edibles, specifically the testing laboratories and all that, we're going to look, the city of Los Angeles is kind of going to look to what is the state said about it and probably just try to use what they're
That's
saying.
not going to be the
and
county when it comes to the food, like where you get your
Yes.
A's and B's.
Yes,
So there's
sir.
going to be
But
three
it
things
should.
involved.
Yes, but the county is also looking to
at
the state.
Okay.
And the county has already said, we can't do anything. It's happening too fast. We need more time.
Yeah.
So they have already put themselves on a slower train
Okay.
than the city. The city is trying to get certain regulations out so that they can begin licensing or offering the certificates by January
Start
of
charging.
18, right? Yeah, they want the taxes to start happening. They want the
Money
businesses
flowing.
to start.
I talked to
They want that registration fee,
Yes.
but there isn't going to be any tax revenue until they're selling, and
Oh
it's
no,
going to
they're
be.
they're
Jonathan-
selling already, and we're going to talk
right,
about
right.
that
Yeah.
separately. So
My nephew, who's a lawyer, he's working on a lot of this stuff with a lot of different businesses, and it's a big business.
Oh, I know that.
And he
Yeah.
said that it's really slow and very confusing because so many entities are involved.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
So they're
and
trying
then
to
we
work
have
it
whatever
out.
happens with the feds. That's what he
Right.
wanted me
Yeah.
to say to you
Right.
tonight, that
Yeah.
the fed's going to be the
Well,
whole deal.
the feds and Richard Adams sent us something this morning. And I don't know who
We
got
didn't
that
get
or
it.
who some of us got that, and I will forward that to everybody. And that relates to some bill at the state level that is trying to interact somehow with the feds. And so I didn't study that. That wasn't for the purpose of this meeting, but that is out there as well. How it will interact with the feds. There is something being addressed at the state level on that.
Well,
and Richard Adams sent that to us, and I will
If
be
you
forwarding
give
that
it
to
to me,
everybody.
then I'll ask Jonathan to explain it.
Right, and I'll
Okay.
forward it to everybody so everybody
Yeah,
has
I'd
that
like to see that.
that bill, because we will eventually probably look at that, but right now
You know, it's
that's not
slow
on the
motion.
thing. Yeah.
Don't
Well, but
forget
you know
when we
what?
actually
It's
voted for
also
this
new world.
originally in the
so
90s.
you have to try to predict
it was
what it's going to
94.
look like in 30 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And follow it along.
Yeah.
All right. So then, so that's what.
Enforcement
so we
will
are
still be
finished
the
with
biggest.
item number 6.
Okay.
Of course.
That was just like an update, and there's no motion on that. It's just a background of where we are. Item 7 is the presentation, discussion, and possible motion with respect to the commercial cannabis location restriction ordinance, and that is. I sent you all of that information as well. So you guys got the notice of the hearing and
Yep.
the background summary. I have 2 of those with the questions and answers, and then the ordinance itself, and then the supplemental ordinance, and then all
And
the
then that
happy,
map that nobody can
all the
see.
happy little maps that go beyond this that show, and I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to show here how limited the locations are based on the sensitive use regulations that they're proposing. What a limited number of places these things can actually exist in. All right.
So
Can I say something?
I had so much trouble reading that map.
I'm sorry.
Well, I have
No, not your
my-
fault, but I
right.
just.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Judy.
Well, it's not just limited, it's also, unfortunately, concentrated.
Yes.
I mean, if you look at the maps, there's areas that are vast areas with none, and some areas with a lot.
yes.
I mean, that's,
So
that
that's
to
an
me is
issue, I
inequitable,
think.
Huh?
I think
Well,
that's an issue,
and
isn't
that's,
it?
Well, that's why they're just
I have to look at
the
that.
different maps
Oh,
are
it's
for
hard to see.
different
Wow.
things. So there's
You can
one
turn the
that
light
is
on,
based
too.
on
Turn the light on the
where you can do cultivation and manufacturing, and obviously
Well, look at in those weird. Look at how weird that
but
is.
the cultivation and manufacturing can only happen in commercial areas. That's what they have in the based on the
In
sensitive
industrial
use.
warehouses.
Yes,
because
exactly.
you need to have
Of course.
giant spaces.
But there,
Exactly.
but there are there's a lot more than this.
Right.
Industrial areas.
Right, but those are the ones that qualify based on sensitive uses. Okay, they're restricted, and
Look
that's
how
what,
much is in the valley.
But
Well, look at Paul's area.
Right.
There's a whole.
Yep. Yep.
all right, and
The
then
whole
if you
strip
look at
is in
this one,
CD2.
right? So this is
Well, it's North Hollywood.
the gray on this one shows the dispensary locations, right? So this one shows where you can, and clearly there are a lot more opportunities for dispensary locations, right? Retail and dispensary, because that's allowed to be in different places. So that's there. Then they have the
It's still going to be called a
Agriculture?
dispensary. I didn't pay attention to
right.
that.
This is
There isn't
the-
enough agriculture. Well, we could have the golf course growing it.
I mean,
Wait a minute, is the golf course on here?
This is
No.
twice. No, no,
Well,
because
it's
on
all
yours.
the Inland,
growing there.
Inland Empire.
Right.
Well, the golf
So-
course isn't. It's agricultural. It's not
Can I
commercial.
like print this one thing 3 times? Or, no. Oh, here's
No,
the
those are different.
distribution. So this one, this is where you can have. If you look at this one, and you see the blue. I think the heavy blue, is where you can have distribution and testing locations.
Testing?
Testing, right?
Well, they have
because
to
all
test
of the
it.
cannabis will be tested.
That's good.
That's part of this to
That's
to
good.
keep it right.
Necessary.
So it can't have like pesticide and all the kind of stuff, and it has to meet certain
Very
criteria.
quiet.
That's also how they
It's
can tell
very-
if it's come
right.
in from some other country. and
Right.
not-
So there,
Like the
that's
stuff I
part-
had one time in high school where it made me so sick?
So that's
well, but that's
another
because
thing.
you were in Michigan.
Probably.
All right.
Yeah.
And then there's the last,
Yeah.
the last
Is
one.
that what they do with it?
Map.
Yeah.
THC, I was so sick from that. Oh my God.
Okay, so
What's
here's
this map?
Here's the
Emily.
last map. I think that's a duplicate one.
The
Here's
micro
last-
business?
This one is the micro business. That one. This one is. So I have 2 with the micro business. I must have printed everything twice.
No, they're
so,
different. The 2 micro businesses, there's 2 different ones. You have to look very closely.
Okay,
look
so
at the
is-
legend.
all right.
I went through the same thing.
Yeah, I couldn't. I just couldn't read them, so I decided to just
Okay,
listen.
so the micro, and what a micro business means is that you have a farming aspect to your business, a grow that is less than 10,000 square feet, and then that qualifies you as a micro business. So it's a
So
specific
you can
distinction.
turn your guest house into a.
Well, no, 10,000 square feet.
Tell them you can't have
No,
it.
because
kinda
it's
big.
not.
It's
that's
less
it.
than 10,000 square feet.
Right, 10,000.
My guest
Oh.
house in the back.
Yes.
I mean, like a
Commercial
greenhouse. You could turn it into
No,
a
but
But you're
greenhouse.
you're in residential, so you
can't go in
couldn't have
residential.
Right.
micro business.
So that would be against the law.
Right.
Right. So people who are
Okay.
growing in
So
their
then
underneath
you're
space
talking
on the
to people in
hillside.
North Hollywood are like breaking the
Well, half the people I know on the hillside, in their bottom underneath their house, they have stuff.
Yeah, most of
except that-
Malibu is agricultural.
Except
Yes.
that they, okay, so they also have, there are certain amounts that you're allowed to have for personal use, like six plants,
I think
blah, blah,
one,
blah.
yeah, what's
Six
the
plants. Yeah, 6 plants or less, you're allowed
For
to have that
yourself.
personal
When
for
you're not-
yourself.
and you can't
Right.
sell
and
it.
you're not a business, then you can have that. So, at any rate, that kind of brings you through all of this stuff.
Do you think they want this to look like the liquor industry?
A
Well, I
bit.
think that's what they needed
A
to
bit.
do.
They have to
They
regulate
can't do it like
They should
pharmaceuticals.
have
No.
said long,
Yes.
long, long,
No,
long,
and they
long,
can't do it
long,
like
long.
vitamin supplements.
No.
Yeah, but when it comes to the liquor industry, you must buy from a licensed distributor.
I think
And
this-
that's what you're going to have to do here. That's
Yeah,
the
I
point.
think so.
That's what you're doing, and that's what the city has set up in this other thing, right? In the regulations.
And
So
that's
the
what you were going
regulations-
for, I thought.
Yeah.
What you want. Okay.
Manufacturer licenses, I didn't see too much on distribution.
Well, because distribution is one aspect. There are different aspects of the cannabis industry. So there's
can
manufacture. There's retail. There's
Cultivation.
medical retail, right? Recreational retail. There's cultivation. There's distribution, and there's testing, and there's so cultivation.
micro
so like
bu- and
box-
micro
call it
business.
supply chain.
Right.
But
Yeah.
So basically,
at
yes.
some point, General Mills and Campbell's going to
MBA in
take
that.
over all the cultivations.
I mean, that's what it is.
A
Yes.
supply chain.
At some point, is
I don't see how they're going to.
General
gonna
Mills or
take very long
Monsanto
time.
going to take
I don't
over
see
that
how
part of
they're
it because it's
gonna
so
enforce any of
big?
I doubt it.
No, I think what's going to
The
happen.
point is to keep it. The city of Los Angeles trying to keep the jobs here
Yeah.
and the revenue here,
Oh.
and so
Yeah.
they don't.
Which would
just
be
want
great, but
the retail, and they're working hard at it, and we have hope. I have hope.
there's more people in LA than there is in the whole state of
Many
Colorado
states, yeah.
or any of the other ones that
Yeah,
haven't
Colorado is
approved.
So
really-
we
Okay.
are on
Joint
a
benefit.
timetable, so we got to
Okay.
circle back around. So All right. Basically, I have a motion, and I've given you all a copy of the motion. So the motion is just this top part here. And it basically said,
Okay, got it.
excuse me, so for the benefit of the recording, I'm going to read the motion now. The Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports the location restrictions set forth in the draft dated June 8, 17 of the proposed ordinance and the related summary of draft commercial cannabis location restrictions with the following exceptions. The HI hybrid industrial live/work zone should not be included in the Section A commercial cannabis activity item 1A small 1, and the Studio City specific plan should be included in the specific plan zones listed in Section A commercial cannabis activity item 1A. Then further, the Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council, SCNC, does not support the draft dated December 8, 2017 of the ordinance supplement land use review option. The SCNC supports the review and imposition of site-specific conditions by the city's Cannabis Commission for each commercial cannabis activity business seeking a compliance document. Additionally, the applicant should be required to notify and obtain support from their neighborhood council as part of the application submission package. So
I have a friendly amendment.
Okay. Well,
When
okay.
you're ready.
So I have
It's just
proposed,
words.
I have proposed a motion, and it needs a second. So we can just So
Well, what is it? Where is a hybrid industrial live work zone in our area?
That is just within the city. That's one of the zones that's allowed to have
I don't think-
cannabis activity. I'm not sure that we have
I couldn't see it on the map.
any in Studio City, but it is one that is in there. And if they defined one in Studio City later in some revision, I would not think that would be a good thing.
Does that
for
have
us
to be in a commercial area? Because the only commercial we really have is where we are right now.
It's
And this
called
is
a
actually
hybrid
manufacturing.
industrial
Yes, we're in two right now.
live work zone.
Okay.
So if you are working and living, then in this zone, then it's residential,
Right.
and I don't think that is the right place
You
to
know
have
where I
this.
think that those lofts by Universal City.
Those
are not in our
it's-
area.
Yes, and it's not industrial.
And downtown by Alameda, they have a lot of
Yes.
live work.
A lot of
But that could be industrial land, though,
right?
right?
And nevertheless,
Here's-
I feel like if it's
Yeah, we don't have any industrial land here
I
in
know,
Studio City.
but if it has live in it, I don't think it should be allowed
Okay.
to be
have
included
cannabis operation.
in
Absolutely.
this specific one. I
Correct.
think that not commercial. I just think that should be excluded. So that's my personal opinion. If we have a second, so I moved it. Lisa Sarkin seconded it.
And here's my-
and, we're going to
my
open
little
it
changes.
we're going to open it up for discussion.
Okay.
So before we make a friendly amendment, let's just
It's just wording.
okay. Go
That's
ahead.
all.
Just give
So it's not the Studio City specific plan. It's the Ventura Cahuenga Boulevard corridor specific plan. Is that what you mean?
okay. So
correct?
this is Ventura. Blah, blah.
Cahuenga.
Right.
Okay.
I know. I
Then-
just have to make
then
it right.
in the
Don't we
other
take
paragraph?
the blah blah really seriously since we're
I know, but when I do the motion, I will type the right words. I
Okay.
just didn't want to write
Then
it all
the
down
next
right
thing is that you don't need the.
Got it.
And I think the neighborhood council down here should be capitalized. Neighborhood and council. That's all.
Really?
Just
That's fine. We will capitalize that.
It's
as long as she's making a change.
Okay,
gotta
that's
be
fine.
right.
All right, so we've got that. So now I want to open this up for discussion, and I want to direct you all. And I don't know how many of you brought your documents with you.
I didn't.
Okay, so we're going to go through so basically these changes relate to the main ordinance, the main draft ordinance, all right? So, because I basically said
That was the
supplemental-
shorter of the
No,
groups
it's-
of papers.
no, the supplemental is the short
Oh,
one.
okay.
And that's the one we just object to that. We don't like
Right.
that one.
All right.
But the other one is here, and that's the main draft ordinance. So basically, the ordinance provides that it's unlawful to conduct any cannabis activity except as expressly provided by state law. All right, so the city is going to say if you don't have a state license, you can't conduct in the city.
Right.
Even
Right.
though you
So-
still have to have a city license.
Yes,
Correct?
You have
Okay.
to have a city certificate, but if you don't comply, you have to have two things to follow under the exemption for being allowed to operate.
state license.
And the
And
first
a city-
one is
and a city-
and
city
a city
certificate.
certificate, right?
Okay.
Okay. So, hold on. And basically what it gives you is the ability to have what they're calling this limited immunity. And that's what lets you operate, the limited immunity.
It's still going to be that. And that's because of the feds, right?
Right. So I believe that's the case.
I didn't understand that part.
The lawyer needs to say that, but I believe that to be the case.
I
so
forgot.
That's where that is.
I forgot to ask Jonathan about that.
So under...
One thing you said was incorrect, but never having one shut down. At Ventura and Eureka, there were 2 pot shops in the same shopping center. They did a walkthrough, police and feds together. One cooperated and was left alone. The other closed the doors, split the blinds, and they were shut down.
Right.
And they were in the same shopping center.
But the point
Richard,
that I was making on that, Richard, was that they weren't targeted. This Studio City wasn't targeted for continual raids, right? There was a specific situation with 2 door-to-door, and the problem with that is that you cannot have, even under Prop D, right? You could not.
They can't be that close.
You couldn't have them door-to-door.
Right.
There has to be like the 500, I don't remember if that was 500 feet or 1,000
it's
feet.
1,000.
You had to be apart. So only one of them was allowed to operate. So they weren't targeted.
But they're not the same thing. One of them claimed to be a doctor, and the other one was supposed to be the pot shop. The problem was, number one, the doctor doesn't have a license to operate, to be a doctor in California, and I think that's the one that's left that sells pot. But a doctor isn't supposed to sell pot either. Well, whatever, they're not supposed to do any of that. So that was part of that whole issue too, and the other people did close down, the ones that wouldn't let anybody in.
Right.
Okay, and so...
And Lisa's been after that forever.
All right, so going on then, so the burden of proof in any enforcement proceeding under the definitions here to establish the limited immunity is the burden of proof is on the person who's operating the business, and you have to be and limited immunity is not available if you're willfully violating the article or if you're violating any restriction or regulation applicable to the cannabis activity under the code or any ordinance adopted by the city or any restriction or regulation applicable to cannabis by the state of California.
Okay.
So you always have to be in compliance with the state of California and the city's rules to even be allowed to have the concept of a limited immunity applicable to you, and the burden of proof is always yours.
And of course,
as an operator,
you can't comply to federal law, so they're just ignoring that. Okay.
Right. So there we have that. So where the first...
Excuse me, I'm sorry, one question. With this social
Equity?
program, basically, are they going to write something in it saying if you've ever have a marijuana violation, you can't get in? That will cut down a lot of people.
Right. No, that they're going to specifically exclude.
Well, aren't they going to if you've ever been arrested for having pot or been in jail even for having pot?
No.
Oh, they're not going to...
There's not going to be a check the box on this for that. I think the intention is if you have a felony, if there are other things that are I think that's how it's going to come down, but we have to wait and see. It's no point in speculating.
Right.
We have to wait till those regulations are
There's so
out
many
there.
marijuana traffic tickets.
Yeah.
Just paid $100 and
Right.
And so are those then
we're not
off your
gonna-
record?
But Rita, that was one
Well,
of the,
it's not a misdemeanor anymore.
that was one of the issues at one of the meetings we did go to, and it usually is in the minority area.
Right.
Right,
At
that's where
most
we
of
were,
them,
yeah.
And they were complaining because they were already feeling discriminated against
Right.
in terms of arrests for things that are
Generally
minor-
accepted everywhere
except
else.
Minor, yes.
Right.
So
So-
that goes
I
against
have to
them.
have one of
So I think that's why
Like Christmas
Right.
candy from 10 years
Right.
ago.
As they should.
as they should.
Right.
Like if I'm opening up a retail
Although I
shop
suck it
for,
now and
like,
don't chew it.
T-shirts. No one's looking in my background.
No, it's
for
really
that.
different because, number one, this is something that's ingested into the human body
Yeah.
that can affect people's driving. To me, it's a combination between a bakery, a herbal supply outlet, and a liquor store. And do you guys ever drive on, I'm sure you do, on Van Nuys Boulevard across from In-N-Out Burger there? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Almost at Ventura. All the time.
It's like kind of ugly on the west side of the street. There's
Yes,
like
I know
crappy-
where you mean.
Okay. I mean, I think there definitely has to be, like, if someone wants to participate and be a cannabis retailer, I think they have to also present a business plan and
Yes, that is
and a
part of the
blueprint of
regulations.
what your
Isn't it? Yeah.
shop
Yes.
is going to look like. Okay, because it
Yeah,
has to be
all that
aesthetic.
is
Well, that's part of the specific plan area anyway. It's part of the corridor. So for us,
You okay?
Oh, God.
You want
Give her a
some
minute.
water?
I can't chew and swallow at the same time.
You all right?
Yeah.
okay.
I was just chewing like candy. Okay, I mean, we have that protection from the specific plan that they have to have a business model for the outside of the building also, if
Do we like
it's
perennial?
enforced.
With all the fancy stuff.
Perennial
At any rate,
is not in compliance.
right.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to go back to this. So at any rate, you all understand that. So within where it talks about on page 3 of the ordinance, where it is where the first place where we have this one exception, this is where it's saying you can have a dispensary and a retail commercial cannabis activity can operate, and then it says within any of the following zones. And then it lists these zones, and that's where it includes that hybrid industrial live work zone that I don't think should be included.
No,
And that's why, because I think residential, you should not have a retail dispensary
In
that's
residential.
commercial operating in a residential, because it could be a child living in that residential.
Of course.
Then you haven't. I mean, it's really not sensitive use at all, right? So that's why I have a problem with that specific one. So I just wanted to highlight that. Then the next thing it says is that you can only operate within these various zones, right? And then it starts listing on page 4 of the ordinance. It starts listing all of the specific plan areas, right? The Glencoe Maxella zone, the Central City West specific plan zone, Warner Center specific plan zone, Alameda District plan zone, on, all of these. And Studio City's
May I see that for a minute?
specific plan zone is not included.
I'll bet there's
there.
not any of the Valley ones at all.
Well,
Why
it's,
not?
Oh, Warner Center's in there.
yeah, Warner Center is.
Well, usually they just leave us out.
Yeah, I wondered about the
Right.
list.
So that is. I just think that the Studio City specific plan zone should be included as
Absolutely.
because we have businesses presently that are property compliant that are operating in here.
Absolutely.
And
5 of
I don't-
them.
I don't know how many.
In
Others,
3 miles.
I don't know how many others will
Well,
want to
if
be
we
there.
put in the
whatever.
specific plan, the whole 17 and a half miles,
Right.
that's why
Right.
Ventura Coenga Boulevard Corridor specific plan.
Right.
Okay.
So that's why I have to correct that wording on
Yep.
on there.
Yep.
But
Blah, blah,
and I
blah.
will do it.
Blah,
Sorry.
blah, right.
The blah blah. Sorry. But I just want to
probably
be
fix
sure
it
that I get it.
for
I will
you.
get it right. Yeah. Lisa, if you would just write it on there, then I will type it quickly. Thank you. All right. So then it lists all of these places, and then it also says you can operate only if you're outside of the 800-foot radius of a school, a public park, a public library, or an alcoholism or drug abuse or recovery treatment facility, and outside of an 800-foot radius from any other dispensary. See, that's what this is the problem, Richard, with those two next door, not 800 feet apart. Any other dispensary, retailer, or micro commercial cannabis activity that has a state license or is an existing medical marijuana business established for priority processing. So, and then the only exception to all of that is a micro business with sales to the public limited to off-site deliveries. So only if you're not selling there, but you have a place there, but you're delivering somewhere else, then that would be an exception.
liquor was allowed to be delivered until the 90s, but
Was it
not
not?
anymore.
Oh, you can't do it now?
No.
Not legally.
Well, except
Except if you're having
wine club, you can have
I think you can
Well,
have
no,
it
no, no.
delivered. Wine club, I can,
liquor.
markets.
but liquor
But
is
do
wine.
they deliver?
No, but wine and beer are
everyone's
separate from
allowed
liquor.
to
When you
have
think
wine.
about it, it's
Oh,
two
wine.
different
I'm not
licenses.
sure.
Right,
Right.
Richard?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing is that the cultivation of cannabis is going to be restricted to indoor, and it's
Oh.
not mixed light.
Wow.
Okay, they're not allowing outdoor cultivation at this point, and they are not allowing the regulations, neither these nor the ones we're going to talk about next time, provide for like a greenhouse or mixed.
They're not providing for that? So where are people going to
Indoor,
grow?
indoor. You have to grow indoor. And it can't be visible. And there's a whole lot of
Is that
regulations.
how they have it in the other states?
M2, we have sound stages.
Right. So
That's a joke.
that's where they are.
Well, it's manufacturing or industrial.
Yeah, we're M2.
So manufacturing commercial cannabis activity is allowed to take place in the Warner Center
Warner
specific
Center.
plan,
Where is
Alameda.
this?
That's on page 8 now. We're on page 8.
Not this stuff.
Oh,
She's reading
yes, I'm
right from the
reading
draft.
From
Okay.
the actual ordinance, which I sent everybody.
Yeah, I didn't
that.
print it.
I didn't
But if
copy
you didn't
it.
print it, then so they list various ones. Here, there's a much smaller list of places, and I did not ask for Studio City to be included in that because I don't think we should be having manufactured commercial cannabis.
Well, I don't know where would they put it anyway? There's no.
We don't really have that kind of location.
The 850 feet on Ventura and Colfax could be a big building where they grow it.
No, I'm not putting that in.
No. But I mean, that's the only space that would be big enough. We don't have anywhere that's big
Right.
enough.
So that, any rate, that's where it's, and so you can see that the list that they've provided for that has gone down from the retail, which had like 14 or whatever locations. This one has 7 that you can
See how
do
modern
it.
I'm being, Lisa? 850 feet by 50.
Don't you think that there should be restrictions about how far, like, the spacing of bars and cannabis places are from each other?
No.
You think that should just be unregulated? So
Yeah,
you can have
they-
bar,
You will cause
hot shop,
problems.
bar,
Nobody
bar.
will. The enforcement would.
Right.
Cause problems.
Rita, you should tell them your idea of what they should be
No,
called.
the could come in after the fact. 'Cause that's
I put my
state.
hand over this, but I think it's still
That would
recorded.
not be-
I think Rita
Right.
came up with the
That's
cutest.
No, well, I've heard that from my working group, but
Right, no, but it was so cute.
Bud bars.
Bud bars.
What?
Bud bars.
She suggested it at one of the meetings. Bud bars.
Oh, cute.
Isn't that
Bud
cute?
bars for that, but we need to
Totally
have
cute.
right for the retail. But that's not part of the plan, so we're not talking about that. All right, so back to here. So then there is the testing commercial cannabis activity, and the testing and where that can take place is again within zones that are manufacturing related, and here they include.
To give a whole list, yeah.
They include 9 places that would be suited within the city for that, and I did not think that we should have Studio City included in
The
that.
only
in that
manufacturing
either.
we have is this
Right.
place.
Right.
They're not going to do it in here.
Right, so that doesn't make sense. Then they have the next section relates to commercial cannabis activity
You
distributor,
know that there's all
right?
kinds of different zones.
And
right?
where you are allowed to place your distribution business. And again, they have a limitation here, and there are 10 places. And what I wanted to ask the opinion of the committee is whether you think we should have distribution businesses allowed in.
What would that look like?
Well, to be a distribution business, it has to be. You have to have
a warehouse.
CM, a commercial. It has to be a commercial manufacturing zone.
We don't have that.
An H1 hybrid industrial work zone.
We don't have that.
Except that I should have asked for that to be exempted too, right? Well, no, distributor. I guess it doesn't matter. An MR1 restricted industrial.
Don't have any
an
of
M1
those.
limited industrial.
Don't have any of
An
those.
MR2 restricted light industrial.
No, we don't have
And
that.
M2 light.
You have that.
That's a M2 where
You're
we
in it
are.
right now.
We have M2, but it's very limited what we have.
What's
is
M2?
Manufacturing too, and then it's got a whole bunch of things
light
that can be in it.
Light.
Light.
So in other words, they're not making cars here in Studio
Right.
City.
That's
Or
the
it's
point.
not a slaughterhouse. It's
Right.
like that.
And or it could be in an M3 zone.
Don't
or
have that.
So
We don't
those
have
are the
that.
places. So the only one of those places that could be in Studio City would basically be at this location.
And it's already used up for
occupied.
everything they could
Right.
possibly put here.
So that's why I didn't suggest. I didn't suggest it, but I wanted to just be sure that everyone agreed.
Agreed.
That was
Yeah, I think so.
the appropriate approach there. Okay.
Yes.
Then it talks about commercial cannabis activity
Excuse me.
that's not entitled to the limited immunity. So that's where it says
Can't believe they're still calling
outdoor
it that.
cultivation, specifically outdoor small. You can't be outdoor. You can't be mixed light, small, any of that. There's just not outdoor, and no specialty outdoor either. So basically, the goal is keep cannabis inside.
Yeah.
And the distances, so then the next thing just to highlight for you, I didn't have an exception with this, but I just wanted everybody to be aware of it, that the distances that are specified are horizontal distances measured in a straight line from the property line of the school, park, library,
Oh,
blah,
so
blah, blah,
not the center of the lot.
to the closest property line of the lot on which the cannabis activity is located, without regard to intervening structures.
That's the way it should be.
So it's as the crow flies,
Walks.
as the crow flies from one spot to another, because it has no regard for what's intervening.
Right.
So I can't walk through a building, but the crow could, fly over the building.
Okay, so they're doing it the
It's
same way
line
that
to
they
line.
right. That's how they do
Right.
it now.
It's
They
not
used to
the
go
center.
from the center of
Right,
the
and
property,
that's not it.
and now they stretched out because that's the right way to do
So
it.
really, this is giving more
Even more space.
So I support that aspect, and I just wanted everybody to be aware that that was the case.
So we're going to support it.
That.
Yeah.
So the commercial cannabis activity, otherwise meeting all these other restrictions, cannot be disqualified from asserting their limited immunity if anything happens after they get their license. So if after the date on which the state issues the license and the city issues its compliance document, so if after that, then a school opens up next door,
Right.
too bad, so sad. They don't have to
Move out.
their place,
Okay.
because that wouldn't be fair to them, right? So, however,
Well, they
if
should look someplace else
Right.
then.
But however, if the school has already put in a permit or anything to say they're going to be there, then they don't get to have a certification in that
Okay.
location. So they give the deference to the public benefit usage. So
That
that's-
makes total sense.
Okay,
to
so
me.
we have all of that, and then there is another provision, and this is really important, and I feel pretty strongly about this as well, and it is a provision that's in these regulations that was strongly felt in the working group, and then is living in these regulations as well, and it's about the limited grandfathering, so that pending a receipt of a final. All right, I'll read you the title.
And they're
there's
calling
limited-
it grandfathering?
Yes, there's limited grandfathering of Proposition D compliant existing medical marijuana businesses. But that is really restrictive. Those grandfather businesses are very restrictive. They have to prove that the EMMB, which is the existing medical marijuana business, right? Because it can only be medical right now.
Right.
So it's EMMB meets all the conditions in the following paragraphs. So they have to have operate and continue to operate in compliance with the satisfaction of the limited immunity restrictions that were issued
From
under
Prop
Code
D.
D. So they have to be operating in that. They cannot expand the physical size of their business beyond the physical size of the business that was existed on March 7th of 17. So like you can't have like between now and the time the licensing come through, you can't say, oh, I'm a Prop D shop, I'm going to buy the business next door, and now I have twice the size. No. You can.
So do you
they're
know why
restricting you to what is the Prop D that you had.
Why did they choose that date?
I think that had to do with when the new regulations where the voting took place, or when they. Had,
Oh, that was March
right?
7th.
March
Yes.
7th, that was
yes.
the voting.
Yes.
Right. So that
means they can't add parking.
they can't add anything to the size of their business. They could add parking. Parking isn't doing anything.
Well, the thing is,
I'm just trying
for
to
the specific plan, for instance, medical marijuana business of any sort isn't listed because whoever thought
Right,
of that, right?
right.
So I don't know how they would figure out the code, how many parking spaces are necessary, unless they just
Right.
call it a retail store,
Right.
and then
So
it goes
it
by
could be
the square footage of
Right.
the
It's gonna
business.
be-
Right, and it does. So
Retail.
it doesn't
Okay.
expand the physical size, and it has to apply. So those are the two things have
Well,
to happen
actually,
first.
that's pretty
And
fair.
The last thing is that you have to apply for your compliance document within 60 days of the first date that they say you can apply. So if they say tomorrow you can apply, and people don't apply
do
with
it.
that, those property places don't apply within the 60 days, too bad, so sad. You
Then
do
you're
not
out.
get grandfathered. You get in line with everybody else that gets considered.
So people would have to
Since
shut down their
time.
shops.
Yes, it
Well,
is.
Is there a fee?
It's
within
again
those 60
enforcing
days
all of
that
this.
You have
Yeah.
to pay?
You don't. You have to pay the fee as
Right.
soon as. Well, first of all, to be property compliant, they have to be paying their taxes. They have to have the. And I want to say it's a BRT. There's certain letters that they use. Business tax.
Right.
Business
BTR.
registration. BTR. Maybe it's business. It's
Business tax registration.
Or something like that.
Okay.
They have to have been having that to be property compliant.
Okay.
So if they weren't paying their taxes,
Okay.
they would
Well, then
not
they're
be
not-
item one.
Yeah, they're not
They're
property
already out
compliant
because
already.
they're not compliant.
Right.
And these guys that are at these meetings, they're all on it.
top of
They're
it,
all
yeah.
on top of
Yeah, they
paying
wait
their
there.
So do you honestly believe there's going to be real enforcement? Do you feel that way from the
I
meetings?
do, because the city wants it.
Well, I know they
are
want the
not
money,
gonna-
but-
no, but they're not going to get the revenue. If you don't enforce it, then the
Yeah.
people aren't going to pay their taxes because it's the
It's a lot of
Wild
money.
West.
Well,
right?
yes, but everything.
There is an
Okay,
incentive
if-
for enforcement here, is the way
Well,
I see it.
Okay.
To get the taxation
Well,
and the
what I'm
revenues to
thinking
work.
about is that how many parking lots are supposed to be paying in a certain amount of money to the city, and there's a list, arm's length long of
Right.
how many of them aren't paying the money, and so that's all I'm mentioning that
Right,
for.
but this they're paying.
well,
and I
this
think
is a
that there's
different kind of
there's
thing,
an
so
incentive,
hopefully.
I
Okay.
think here.
Okay.
So they have to apply within 60 days. So those are the three things you have to do to get considered for grandfathering. You have to have all of that. Those are all part of the requirements to obtain the compliance.
And so that's
job.
only 164 in the whole entire city.
right to the
that
start
was
with.
property
I actually think
compliant.
it's less than 164. They're using a number that's
The
less
whole
than
city?
164.
Really, not the 100.
I think
Well, that
it's
was
the whole
what.
city?
Well, Pot D referred to 164
Right,
that were
but there
allowed to be on. There was
but-
a list.
But if
So they
you
must have
moved
knocked
or
them
if you
some of them
closed,
off.
Some of
Okay.
them have gone away. Some of them haven't paid their
Okay,
taxes.
so now
some
it's
of them
less than-
open and
all right.
closed, all that kind of stuff. So,
Okay.
that's how you get to the grandfathering. So that's the next thing that I just wanted to highlight for everybody. And we already talked about the facts. So, and then of course, there's a severability clause, so that if any one of the particular clauses of the ordinance doesn't, falls out because of the law says no, you can't do that, all the other ones still apply. They continue to be applicable, so they have severability clause. So those are the main provisions of this, and that is my summary of how I got to
Your motion.
Just
my
the two,
motion.
the two, and the two.
That in reviewing it, those were the only two things that I could find.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Have they, like the last ordinance, do they have a limit in terms, is it by lottery or anybody who applies that qualifies? I mean,
And do they have to be spread out?
I didn't see it,
Is
but
my
I didn't
question.
see, and I
Great
didn't
question.
read everything,
Yes.
I didn't.
Well, that's what is implied in all these maps. They're trying to
A limited
show
number of
how
things.
limited number can exist because of all the restrictions.
But the maps only show location, limited location.
But that's the point.
But still, there could be an unqualified number if you think about it. If it's only 800 feet separation.
Every 800 feet you can have a shot.
I mean, and there's enough places on the map. They'd be in the thousands.
And they
But
all.
you have to
Do you have to be
realize that
800?
You have to be 800 feet, and you have to have met all of these other restrictions.
But they
It's-
don't have
it's
a
hurdle.
But my point is, they don't have a number limit.
There's no cap.
It's
At
not
this
like the
point,
164.
To my knowledge, there's no cap.
I didn't see any cap even in that.
Even in the final regulations,
so-
I didn't. I haven't
So
heard
can
a
you
cap.
assure us that it's not going to be like a Starbucks?
Well, actually, I think it wouldn't be bad if it was a Starbucks because they're nice looking. The
No, but
product
how
is
many is
consistent.
what I think we. How
I'm
many?
more concerned that it's going to look like these smoke bars, these smoke shops that are with the
vape shops. I
The
know.
vape
All right,
shops.
well,
That's what I'm more concerned.
Well, maybe
that-
this is something you don't know. We basically don't regulate facades.
Right.
or designs of properties,
Yeah.
even houses. The cities rejected that over and over and
As a
over and again.
concept.
I don't remember if it was because there was a city attorney thing or a lawsuit over something, but we normally don't do that. So in certain areas, like even though Lisa and I are on the plan review board, there's a design advisory committee, but it's advisory about what a facade in a building looks like on Ventura Boulevard, for instance.
And it's an encouragement.
So,
You encourage them.
and then we have streetscapes and things like that you can try to regulate what something looks like on the outside. But other than that, as for a design or what they all look like, no, that we wouldn't have anything to say basically about that.
We should all take a field trip to Colorado.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got some pictures.
Those guys, they know
They're-
how to
they're in a
spend money
different-
on their facade.
Yeah.
of their
That's in a different
storefront.
place.
Yeah.
So,
So,
it's already
They're at
after
an advantage.
You know, but
after our hour for our meeting
Yes.
to adjourn. So I want to
well, I think this
ask
is
for
good.
any. So I've kind of given a background and
You did a great
we've
job.
had
I am limited that
during
I'm
it.
disappointed that there aren't caps on everything. And I didn't understand this. 800 feet from a manufacturing plant, a manufacturing grow, you can have,
No,
right?
no,
It's
no.
limited more about that too, right?
So,
No, here on this.
Oh, I don't
table,
remember that
That was
table.
one of the things I sent
Oh,
out.
I don't remember seeing that
This
one.
is the summary
Okay.
of the draft commercial cannabis location restrictions. So if you're in a retail or a dispensary, then a buffer is required. If you're in a micro business, a buffer is required. If you're in cultivation and manufacturing, you don't have a buffer. You
Okay.
can, right? Because you're not in a sensitive use.
No,
where
you'd
you
be
should
in a
sensitive-
manufacturing
you're in
area,
that kind of-
okay.
and if you're in a distribution and testing, then you're not doing. You're not like testing.
It's the other
on
places
street,
on the map.
right?
Okay, I
so
just
they're
didn't
not,
understand that.
They're also not required to have
Okay.
a buffer. So that's why they've set this out, and then it explains on here what.
I want to copy that before we.
I sent it to everybody.
I don't remember
All
seeing
right,
that.
so
Okay.
we'll make
Yeah,
a copy for you
yeah,
before you
okay.
go. So, and then on the back it just lists what are the keys. What all these mean. These numbers, what they mean, what those definitions mean from a land use.
Yeah, I have to
perspective.
say, Richard, I'm sure you'll agree that the part that I read, which was not the big giant thing, but I was really impressed on how it's written for something that I don't think has gone to the city attorney yet. I thought they did a really good job
Right.
for a change.
Yeah,
I have to
I
say
thought-
something
People
good
are
for
really
once.
serious about this business.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
a lot of
want
money.
it to-
Oh my God, you would not believe how much my nephew Jonathan is making on this thing,
I don't-
just to be the lawyer.
Besides the point, but it's like people have been dying to have this regulated and have it be open.
Right.
Well, they've done that in the past for
Instead of
things
just
too,
like-
Lisa, but
Right.
it's always so shoddy here. So something happened that's different. And if it's Westall,
I happen to think that it has a lot to do with the leadership.
There are
okay, that's what I mean.
smart
So
people
maybe for
behind
now
it.
it's some.
I think
yeah.
it was Council President Wesson and putting a great guy, Westall, who really understood it and who dove in and who worked really hard
So that's
to
that-
understand it. I mean,
Well,
a
bringing in,
effort.
bringing
Effort.
in the other states.
Oh, that was
Places.
fantastic.
Yeah.
We went to this
You learn
lecture.
by their
yeah, no, it's Colorado and
But
Washington.
it's so many times they bring in people that it can't apply to LA. You
Right.
can't even see how it could possibly work. You know that. But they
brought
finally did
people from
something
the state
right.
to say this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
They brought.
And they said what they thought was a mistake and that we couldn't use here.
But you know what's so interesting too is that Colorado and Washington had a lot of growers from here
Yep.
come and set up their businesses there.
Right.
So now it's like coming full circle around.
Well, I know
right?
somebody whose nephew is a chef, or was a chef on the East Coast. Well, guess what he's doing now? He's
Yeah.
doing edibles in Colorado.
Of course.
It's going to be
Well,
business
Okay, so
Why-
I want
Why
to go
smoke?
back around.
Okay, so we
All
got to
right.
vote on this or whatever else we
Yeah,
need.
does
need to
anybody else have a comment related to the motion?
I just
No,
want to
it's good.
make sure that the Ventura Boulevard.
Lisa wrote it right.
Right. Okay.
So this language,
Yes, that's it.
Ventura
Ventura
/
Cahuenga
Cahuenga Boulevard corridor, and we write out Boulevard, right?
You
Right?
can, or you.
Boulevard
You'd have to put
specific plan.
boulevards
That
with the
whole-
S.
That whole thing is what's going to live where I had previously just put Studio City specific plan.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and you're comfortable with it, with it not being here or wherever that could be applicable in the municipal code?
That's where I'm telling them.
Well, that's where
Point one.
she's telling them it
Please
has to be put
this in here and put it specifically
Okay.
in this section. Section A, commercial cannabis, item 1A. I want it to go in this
Okay.
spot.
And when,
But-
if this passes the board, I think you should send it to us so that we can send it to everybody in the other areas through the PRB.
Specific plan areas.
So that they would
Right.
add it to something they're doing.
I'm sorry, to the PRB.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Or just to Lisa or I, and we'll send it to
Yeah.
Kathy, and she'll send it to everybody
Yeah,
else.
fine.
Or
I
we'll
will
do
do
it,
that.
whatever.
Question.
Yes.
Is the stuff, including HI in your thing, going to cause resistance because people, there aren't any HI zones in Studio City? I'm wondering if people are going to say, why are we doing this? And just slow, I don't want things to be slowed down. We're going to have it go through so fast that,
Well, because I think if this is our opportunity to have input,
say.
and we have to say, I don't think it's applicable. I don't think it's appropriate to have the retail cannabis in a
Where any place where somebody lives.
in a live environment
Yeah, right.
where I could have children living upstairs above the work zone.
And Richard,
so
what
I
if
just
nobody
think it's
else thinks of that? So it can't hurt for us to
I
do
know.
it.
I just
We have
wonder
to put it
because
forward.
the people having the lots downtown are already in a live work zone, and they said, why not us?
Well, they can say
But
that,
the-
but
But they can make that. Then they can weigh in. But
all
this
the
is
other
what-
areas
that's
are
the
without it.
Right.
So right.
concerned with studios.
Right.
Yeah.
But that
We're
was
concerned
I know,
with
but that was
children.
Richard's point. Richard's point is if
We don't have
an
those, why should we-
Why should we weigh in? And it's because
we should.
it's an overall
Yeah.
regulation for the city,
Yeah.
and who knows when something changes here, and and then we could get one of those zones.
Yeah, you
Or
have a
nobody
developer.
realizes it's not in there. So
Right.
that's how we've always done it.
So that anyway,
Okay.
that's why. So I'm now
like to
going
go
But I
through.
understand your point.
Yes. Yeah, yes, having sat at that meeting a number of times, we get what you're saying, and we appreciate
And
that.
and quite honestly, because of lack of housing shortages, you never know if the owner of this lot here could sell
Yes.
off some properties and turn it. This would be a perfect place for loft work.
The live work
Live
zone.
work
So
environment.
it could happen. All right, so I'm going to ask for call for a vote on the motion as amended. All in favor? Yes. Okay, so it's unanimous. There are
four
four of us here, and all four of us have voted on this. Yes. Thank you. All right, then let me just see what
400.
on my agenda is.
Nothing. I just
You
looked.
did an amazing
Comments.
job. I got to tell
Except
you.
I lost it.
Always done.
Yeah.
Comments.
Thank you. Oh, comments.
Comments
Okay,
from
so
members.
do any of the committee members have any comments? that they
Yes,
want
I
to
do.
make? Okay.
I did not appreciate getting the email that I did from Denise this morning. I know she's the president. I know she has her way of doing things, but it's the way she does it. She doesn't have respect for anyone that I consider a board member or a committee member. I really don't, and I'm very sorry to say this, but I have to put it out there. She did the same thing to me when I was the chair of the land use committee. I did not get a phone call from her. I didn't get an email from her. There's no courtesy there to notify the chair of a committee to say, this is what I am doing. She demands it by sending an email the way she does to force whatever it is that she's doing on us, and I don't appreciate
Right,
it.
and I just
It's just so
response-
inappropriate, basically, to tell a chair who's going to be in their committee.
Well, okay, that is part of our bylaws. Is that the president appoints the chairs,
Right.
and the chairs select their committee.
Right.
There is
Exactly.
another portion of the bylaws or operating procedures, the governing documents. I can't remember which one it's in.
Okay.
It's in both. It's in both. So and then, but the board has a right to or remove any member of any committee.
The board does.
The board
doesn't
does, exactly. And so when I received that email, I responded to Denise that, based on my understanding of our governing documents, this isn't how it works, and that for this meeting, because that wasn't how it was set out, and because my committee members are the committee that we have for this point in time, no one will be added at this juncture to the committee, and we'll see what happens in the future.
So wait,
So-
the reason you said board members, does that mean since she's the president of the board, she can appoint?
No.
What she can
Only
do
the
is
board.
she can
Chair
put a
vote.
motion on the agenda, on the board agenda, and the board can vote to put an individual on a committee.
Right.
Or to take an individual off a committee.
But that's
But the-
like step B.
After it goes on a board agenda, correct. And when I mentioned that,
or A,
Right.
the committee chair appoints the
Right.
members of the board.
Right.
May-
Or
may I-
the committee, yes,
The rest of us did not see whatever was sent to you.
right.
So what was
Yeah, I have no idea
what was most disconcerting to you?
It was just the manner, I think, of the
Well,
email.
but what
Well,
was
first
the
thing in the
reasoning?
morning.
Okay,
What
but
was
I-
the
I-
reasoning?
Okay, it was an issue of, the concern was an issue of transparency.
Okay, so let
And
me just
so-
say this. The board has not had any transparency whatsoever since March. The only recordings that have been posted on YouTube were ones that were done by the chairs. Budget and public safety. So if transparency is what somebody's after, what happened to all of the May and the June recordings that have taken place for the meetings? They're just not
I'm
there.
Sorry,
But it's
we
okay.
take detailed
I know.
minutes
I know.
here,
And-
right?
And I've expressed
so
that.
what part of it are we not transparent?
Well, I don't think that has anything to do with it ultimately.
I actually don't believe that we lack transparency, but I understand the concern, and it's an optics issue, right? The appearance, it appears to people that I haven't wanted to, that I've made no effort to record our minutes or to video our meetings. We had a video one time.
Well, I'm
Were you-
sorry, but that
wait,
doesn't
I'm
matter if it
speaking
doesn't
now.
get posted.
Okay.
Fired.
So we had one time, that
And
we
it's
had
not recorded.
We had a recording, and I was happy and said that's fine. Anytime somebody wants to come, they can come and record. I have no problem with that. So tonight, our secretary isn't here, and we've recorded it. But I actually asked Lisa if in the future she would mind recording the meetings as well, so that something can go up. And I think that may eliminate. It's sometimes you just have to go with what is overcome the appearance problem that's being had. So if they have a problem with the appearance, then let's try to address the problem. And that's kind of, I understand
Okay,
the
I
way
understand what
I
you're
understand the
saying,
way it
too.
came down was appeared offensive,
Insulting.
And so I took it back, and I explained the situation, and Denise called me on the phone, and we had a chat, and so we understand where we are with this, and we've recorded the meeting tonight, and I think that gets us past the thing. And I want to have the appearance. I want everyone to feel that we have transparency. We have nothing to hide. This group, everything we do ends up in the boardroom anyway. We don't have like some secret motions happening. So I think
That's why I'm wondering why the
I know.
spotlight is
I can't-
shining on us of not being transparent.
Well,
it's very insulting.
I know.
I'm very sorry.
I
to
understand.
Because it's about
I understand.
Richard Adams.
Well, okay, we're still on the
It's
record, and I
about
don't want anyone accused. I don't want anyone whatever. I just want to say that it was an optics issue, and we're gonna address the optics. And I addressed your concern because I felt a little bit the way you did as well. And so, but Denise was receptive to that, and we spoke about it. So.
Because there's no thought that
Okay,
goes
so
into
I would like
it in
to. I'm going to
advance.
adjourn the meeting
Yes.
now at
Thank
7:15 because Lisa has a client
Thank
that she
you.
has to get to, and I do
Thank
thank you for
you.
moving the client so that I would have a quorum tonight,
Yes.
Lisa. I really
Do we
appreciate
have to
it.
vote? No,
So,
nobody's not.
So-